All right. Well, I say based on my clock, it's 4:30. So I would now like to call the November 20th, 2024 Longmont Sustainability Advisory Board meeting to order. Could we please start with the roll call?
Yes, Corkett Onaran,
Here.
Robert Davidson,
Present.
Ralph Grosswald, Daniel Leonard,
Present.
Ethan Augreen,
Here.
and Michelle is out sick today. She's not able to join us, and Mary had something come up. She wasn't able to come either. Councilmember Martin is here. Lisa Knobloch.
Here.
Becky Doyle.
Here.
Francie Jaffe.
Here.
Susan Bartlett.
Here.
Heather McIntyre's here. We have Cammie Edson from the Planning Department with us today, and also Peter Mayer from Water DM, who will both be presenting later. Chair, you have a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I'll start by reading the land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that Longmont sits on the traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous peoples. We honor the history and the living and spiritual connection that the first peoples have with this land. It is our commitment to face the injustices that happened when the land was taken and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. In our inclusion statement, the Sustainability Advisory Board embraces diverse perspectives from its members and the public. To create an inclusive space where everyone feels welcome to share their opinion, the board asks that all attendees listen and speak with respect and avoid attacks on individuals or specific group identities. Next up is the approval of our minutes from last meeting. Does anyone have any changes or corrections that need to be included? Okay. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I should raise my hand as well. So that's 4 ayes. All those opposed?
Abstain.
And abstaining? Okay. Thanks, Ethan. Okay. The motion carries. Are there any agenda revisions that we need to account for?
Nope.
I'll just mention that the Front Range Sustainability Council did have a networking meeting last week, and when we get to items from the board, I'll give a quick mention of that.
Okay. Lisa, did you have anything as well?
Nope. Thanks.
Okay. Well, the first item under general business then is the water efficiency plan update that I believe Peter Mayer is going to get us kicked off with. So take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman. My name is Peter Mayer. I'm the principal of Water Demand Management, Water DM, and I've had the privilege of preparing and working on Longmont's water efficiency plan. I have a few slides to share with you. And I'd like to sort of walk you through the efficiency plan. There is currently a survey that is available, so if you have any comments, you can go online actually, and it's possible to submit comments directly that way. But I'm happy to answer any questions related to the plan. The document itself is also available, I believe, online from the city's website, because we're currently under the 60-day public review process. So just a little bit of information about water efficiency planning in Colorado. It's required for every water utility in the state of Colorado to complete a water efficiency plan roughly every 7 years. When I say required, I mean it's one of those things that, like, if you don't do it, you find yourself ineligible for certain things like taking loans and then participating at the Colorado Water Conservation Board fully. And so it is something that all covered entities in the state of Colorado I consider a requirement, are required to do. And Longmont has submitted a water efficiency plan since 1996. I've had the good fortune of working on 3 of them. And so I may have almost as long his knowledge of the Longmont water system and planning as Ken. Both Ken and Hope, who were the staff members who worked on this plan, were not able to attend this meeting, but they really were the leaders of this effort. So let's go to the next slide. Just a little bit. Longmont put out an RFP for this plan, and I put a team together along with my colleague Courtney Black, who also couldn't be here today, and we were selected to prepare this plan. I have worked preparing water efficiency plans for water utilities across Colorado, but my practice as an engineer really is more national.
Are you done already?
Excuse me? Oh, I think that might have been inadvertent. I'm a researcher, and I have led 3 of the national residential water use studies, and I'm currently the principal investigator for the 3rd version of the National Residential End Uses of Water Study. So just let's get on to the plan itself here. The key benefits, I mean, so the city, in a nutshell, the city of Longmont projects that it has adequate water to meet what is currently considered the planning horizon for population. That said, increasing water efficiency even now and up until the future planning horizon has important benefits both for Longmont and the broader community. First of all, just general leadership and sustainability. And water, of course, as we know, is a scarce resource. And even if one particular place might have an adequate amount of water, in Colorado, it could well be that Longmont, has a sufficient supply in a given year, and neighbors might not. And so showing leadership in sustainability is, I think, very important. And this is something Longmont has demonstrated for many years in this area with water efficiency. And when you look at the demand trend, you'll see sort of the success that Longmont has had. It's also part of coordinated water stewardship. So Hope Bartlett, who is the water efficiency coordinator, participates in a number of different statewide organizations that focus on water efficiency and really represents the city of Longmont in those, and also works with other regional groups like Northern Water to implement water efficiency programs in Longmont. I would consider, I spent my career working in water efficiency. I consider it fundamental climate change adaptation. I mean, our water resources are one of the most stressed by the impacts of a warming climate. And so to the extent that we can reduce our use and understand how to manage our water use in normal years and in drought years, it is absolutely fundamental. And then sort of what's come with water efficiency has become landscape management, because so much of water efficiency is about changing landscapes and landscape water use. Creating a diverse and healthy outdoor environment really is a fundamental element of thinking about a water future for a community. And it's in most places, it's really not acceptable to think about a future where there's no outdoor water use, because we need trees and we need landscape. And in our climate in Colorado, most of those are going to require at least some supplemental irrigation. Maybe not as much as Kentucky bluegrass, but some supplemental irrigation is absolutely going to be necessary. And so figuring out what that right amount is and what to plan for, it can be a community by community decision. Reduction of carbon footprint. Water efficiency is a different kind of role in reducing the carbon footprint. We are fortunate in Colorado that most of our water is gravity fed, so we don't pump a lot of water. Generally, though, in the world of water efficiency, to the extent that you can reduce hot water use, you actually can reduce your carbon footprint. And so that can be an area to think about. One of the biggest benefits of water efficiency for Longmont has been to actually delay expansion of infrastructure. And Longmont, if you look at what was planned for 30, 35 years ago versus what they're planning for today, the size of both the water and the wastewater infrastructure have not needed to be added to as was previously thought. Oh, we're actually on the next slide. And that even delaying this is a financial benefit to the city, the time benefit of money. And so this, and currently the current treatment plant, there is capacity, and there is a secondary treatment plant that is not currently being used. So you're in good shape for water capacity. Finally, in our area of Colorado, urban water conservation really is about saving the farm. It's about not transferring water from agriculture to the urban sector, because that's really if a utility needs water in Colorado, where do they look? They look to agriculture, because that's where about 85% of all of the water use in Colorado goes. So to the extent that we don't have to do that, we are preserving agriculture. And I consider that to be a critical benefit of water efficiency. All right, next slide. That's Peter preaching a little bit there. So when you think about planning in Longmont, I mentioned that there's the statute that requires planning. And so because I worked on the past plans, I thought it's important to review where we've been and what's been accomplished. Longmont has had a long-standing goal to reduce water demands by approximately 10% by what was considered to be build out, then considered to be 2048. And when this goal was set, we looked back at what consumption was then versus what it was forecast to be and what it is today, and honestly, that goal has been achieved. That there's no question in my mind that per capita water use has been reduced by 10%. And so that the goal of this plan, as we'll get into, is, and this is just for a 7-year, is really to extend those savings and to try to further reduce per capita water use by another 3%. In the coming 7 years, about 0.5% per year, which is kind of the trajectory that Longmont has been on. But it's also important to understand that in the world of water efficiency, the easiest savings are the ones that come first, and it's harder to get additional savings over time. New customers join the system very water efficient. So a lot of if you want to see your incremental savings, that has to come from the existing customer base. Anyway, it's mostly a great success story for Longmont. The key goals, though, that we added for this plan are to continue to try and reduce the irrigated non-functional turf on city properties. And non-functional turf is a term d'art. But it's generally, you could think of it as the type of grass that only gets walked on when it's being mowed. And that's pretty much it. And there, we all are familiar with health strips and various areas that certainly can be replaced with other places where people can still walk. And then sometimes these can also be replaced with native grasses and other things that have a very similar look and feel, but actually use a lot less water. So that's one of the goals. There's also a continued goal, and this has been a long-term goal for the city, and that's to expand the use of raw water irrigation to the extent possible on city properties. And there's a number of places and it has to be done generally at a time when the irrigation system is going to be replaced anyway, because otherwise it doesn't make sense financially. And so it's generally more of an opportunistic thing. And also it has to do with whether you can get the raw water to that location conveniently and relatively inexpensively. There's a goal to integrate some elements of water efficiency management in city irrigation. this is kind of an interesting one that they're going to try for in the next 7 years. In Longmont, if you want to think about when does the highest water use occur, the peak water use occurs in Longmont it's actually early Monday morning. So it's Sunday night going into Monday. And that is the time when most irrigation systems are somehow simultaneously programmed to come on. It's not like they all come on at that time, but it happens to be the time when there's the most coincidental use of irrigation in the summertime. And that creates the single weekly peak demand, essentially largest incidence of demand. And the city staff have concluded that they can probably shave that peak simply by shifting irrigation at city properties away from that one day. You could do it the day before, you could do it the day after. And so that's one of the things they're going to try to work on is to organize this irrigation and to track that and see if they actually can make that impact on peak demand. Which is a cool thing to sort of a project for a utility to take on. And then, of course, there's a continued goal to promote water efficiency equitably, which generally means making sure that any kind of rebates or efficiency programs are specifically directed to lower income, often multifamily customers. Or mobile home customers, people that generally haven't participated in, toilet rebates or clothes washer rebates. And sometimes that means you also need to do direct installs and not just offer a rebate. And so that's also something Longmont's doing. All right, next slide, please. So here is the water trends. So the green line is the population of Longmont. And this is going from 1996 up through 2023. And the numbers are actually on the right hand for the population. The blue bars are the total water production. So that is all of the water that is being produced for the city of Longmont, be it for single family, multifamily, commercial, all of the different water uses that occur. And so if you can see, water use was kind of going up, and it was kind of going up all the way through about 2006, 2007. And even after the 2002 drought, there was a drop following that. But then really it starts to taper off, even as population goes on up. And then 2023 was the lowest water use year in Longmont in a long time, largely because of the wet spring. So it's probably when we're looking at reducing water use into the future, I'm really considering 2022 as a more realistic, typical baseline year than 2023. 2023 would show that you've achieved every single water efficiency goal we might conceivably set. Realistically, it was so low. So just so when we're talking about a 3% reduction, it actually is coming from that 2022 water use, which really I think is more typical in a normal climate year. All right, next slide. So here's per capita water use, and this is how we know that things are getting more efficient. And this is where you just take the total that total that we saw divided by the service area population. And I like to use this as just a basic measure of the water efficiency of a community. It's not a fair way always to compare because you might have more commercial customers or you might have more parks or different. There's plenty of reasons why someone's utilities per capita use is higher than another one's, but for within a utility like Longmont, and if you're working on water efficiency, you'd like to see kind of a declining trend over time, and that is indeed what you've got here. There is always going to be fluctuation from year to year. That is because we're dealing with water, and the outdoor use, as we saw on the last chart, from 2023, if you get a wet year, you just have a lot less irrigation, and so you do get year-to-year fluctuations. But the general declining trend in Longmont is an indication of efficiency that's occurring across the community. But if we look at it sector by sector, which I think is the next slide, well, no, it's not the next slide. I apologize. Go back for a second then. It's in the plan, is the sector by sector. And it's the punchline here is it's actually really the residential sector. The commercial sector has stayed pretty consistent. Now, it's probably grown in terms of the number of customers, which does suggest ongoing efficiency. But the true declining demand trends are in the residential sectors, where we've seen indoor water use get tremendously more efficient, really across the state. We have water efficiency law in the state, so that you can't buy a toilet fixture or a shower head in Colorado that doesn't carry a WaterSense label on it. So really, we've tackled some of the key things to ensure water efficiency occurs with new construction and as people remodel their homes. All right, let's go to the next slide. So what's in this the plan? And a lot of this stuff is required by the state from their planning, but I'll talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Longmont. So of course, every 7 years you do this. Longmont has been updating their water efficiency plan, which tries to coordinate with all of the other water planning efforts that go on. But generally, it's not on the same cycle as the integrated water management plan or the raw water management plan. So it does exist a little bit as its own animal, but that's the way it's written into the state law, kind of. The key thing that's included in the plan, though, is an implementation plan, and that calls for continuation of the program, and also it's impossible to say exactly what the program should be 7 years from now, but gives a potential trajectory. One of the things that it's important is that Hope have the ability to adapt, and move her budget around if things changed. If there was a drought, things like that. And so, this is a guidance document in terms of like budgetary allocations and, X number of rebates and that kind of thing. Because that is the demand for that kind of stuff can also change over time. Some things, though, don't change, and that's like measurement and data. Longmont, of course, is fully metered and, keeps very good records of the water demand and water consumption. And importantly, over the last, I don't know, I would say 10 years, but really in the last 5 years, has hunkered down on the task of doing an annual water loss audit. And that is an exercise that utilities really are now required to do every year. And it assesses like the difference between how much water was produced and then how much water was actually delivered to customers. And so, and then what the difference there then is carefully looked at to understand that water loss, because that's the water that's like you're not selling, so it's either being leaked out of pipes or somehow it's not being accurately measured. There's a variety of different ways that water loss occurs. All utilities have water loss. It is a part of standard operating for water utilities, but doing this annual water audit is an important way of tracking it and in a systematic way so you can understand it. Well, do we have a problem? Is it getting worse? Are we holding steady, or is this something we're actually able to make some improvements on? As systems age, it's not always possible to make improvements, to be honest. Sometimes just holding steady with water loss is considered a triumph. But it's also a way of a utility tracking the replacement of infrastructure in its system. If you think about a utility, if you're not replacing 1% of your water mains per year, you're on a slower than 100-year cycle to replace all of the water mains in your system. So really, there needs to be a regular replacement of that infrastructure. Rates and charges. Longmont has an increasing block rate system, which is a conservation-oriented water rate system, and it's also considered the most equitable in that The lowest charge for water is the indoor, the first block. And the higher charges are designed to target outdoor water use. And so if you read the literature on affordability and equity, this is the rate structure that shakes out, honestly, as being the one that is really the most equitable. But equitable. But there's also the ability to have other programs and forgiveness in water programs too. But from the water efficiency perspective, this is considered a conservation-oriented rate structure and best practice. Longmont also, let's see, I had some notes about the key thing about the codes and regulations is that Longmont completed a study from Del Corazon Consulting this past year where they looked at land use codes and made some recommendations about updating the city's land use codes and landscape codes. And so that we didn't want to prescribe anything since there's still some decisions to be made about that. But that to me is the most significant change that's coming in codes and regulations related to water efficiency that will change the future water use. The plan includes a variety of indoor efficiency measures. We'll talk about, but I mean, there's really not that much new under the sun. It's toilets, it's showers, it's faucets, it's clothes washers. And Longmont has various programs that impact all of these. Outdoor, there's also, a variety of things from turf removal, rebates, irrigation efficiency audits. Some of the next slides actually get into some of the specifics. Longmont, that Hope runs also a education and outreach program, school education, water fair, a variety of different things there. And then also the city, as I mentioned before, has an aggressive effort to try and use raw water. And they also Ken has enacted over his time working here a way of reusing water through a water swap. That he can explain way better than I, but it's really a way of optimizing Longmont's water resources. I think that's also an important thing to acknowledge through this plan. All right, next slide. So if you really want to know all the program measures that Longmont does, you can go to the plan itself and look at table 5.1. It's really an impressive long list. And it's not all, there's many things that aren't directly under Hope's program. I mean, water rates and things like that, but it's really about how the utility itself manages it. And this plan covers really the whole gambit of elements. It's designed for 7 years. It includes an annual monitoring plans of the things that you want to look for. But really, the proof is in the pudding. It's in that annual water demand. You want to look at the population and water use. You really want to see that per capita water use generally in that declining trajectory. I think I've covered really what the key focuses are new in this plan, but it's again that focus on landscapes, on raw water, on water loss audits, on demand management through the irrigation timing of city properties, and through the new Del Corazon report. That's where you're going to get this engagement on land use planning and to better integrate water and land use planning across the city once those new land use codes are decided upon. All right, next slide. So it's just some of the residential programs that are part of the city's official water efficiency program, which would be sort of the budgeted program. This includes contracting with Resource Central, which is our local nonprofit that runs a variety of very effective water efficiency programs. They have the slow the flow irrigation assessments. Garden in a Box is you can get a pre-made garden plan that's planned by a designer, beautiful plants, and put it in. And I actually helped do some of the analysis of water use before and after Garden in a Box. It's quite a remarkably effective program. We don't think it's the only thing maybe that's going on in the homes, but The change in water use is around, oh God, no, it was something around 8,000 gallons a year, I think. Don't quote me on that. I've got too many numbers in my head. But it definitely was impressive for that type of program. Put it on the same par with like a toilet replacement, clothes washer, that sort of thing, for just a small, garden. The resource set also offers seminars and, of course, the turf replacement. There's also the Efficiency Works is the online rebate program, which is offered through Platte River Power Authority, and this is where customers can go and get different rebates for various different products. And Longmont puts in money to that to support the rebates that come from the city of Longmont. Okay, next slide then. So if we look at the commercial and the multifamily, this is one where there's a variety also of outside organizations that assist with Longmont's program. One is Northern Water. Northern Water is the large water provider that runs the Colorado Big Thompson project, and Longmont, of course, is a member and uses a lot of Colorado Big Thompson water. They have started to offer audits of large commercial customers. That's an expensive thing to do, and so if someone else is doing it, that's great for Longmont. When hope is we're running a program on a budget, and so she's wise to take advantage of the assessments. The hardest thing about the commercial sector is you can do an audit and you can present them with hey, here's how you can save a bunch of water. It's a lot harder for people to get to actually implement those things. And a lot of times they're so expensive that they tend to get put off until there's some other kind of a major retrofit that occurs. The Resource Central also offers, though, outdoor audits. And this is important because a lot of commercial and multifamily water use is outdoors. And so focusing there is also an important effort. And so there's a great effort to try to make sure that irrigation systems are operating properly and irrigating as designed, and that's really what the purpose of these audits are. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. There's I think that this one covered it. So when we took the plan, we compared it against all of the requirements of the Colorado Water Conservation Board, and so it checks all of those boxes. I am the lead author of the brand new Colorado Best Practices Guidebook for Municipal Water Efficiency, and I can tell you that Longmont's plan is directly in line with all of the recommendations there. Everything is a function of budget and how much you want to spend, and you can pay for a lot of water savings and try to accelerate them. That doesn't make a lot of sense, really, when you have a water supply like Longmont's does. So, this gradual approach to, the sort of viewing water efficiency as a long-term project is really the wise, I think, the prudent way to approach it when you have a supply like Longmont's. And then finally, there's a conservation standard that's put out by the American Water Works Association. I might have had something to do with that too. And this is another one where you can sort of check off, and Longmont really meets or exceeds pretty much all of this. There may be one or two ones that a judge might question, but I would, if I was like to rate it on a gold, silver, bronze, I would definitely put Longmont's program at least at a silver and pretty dang close to a gold level for hitting all of the points in that management standard as well. Okay, I think that might be it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Thanks. Awesome. Thank you so much for this, Peter. And I was actually I had some questions about the rate structures on page 21.
Sure.
And I was kind of curious, particularly with the single family residential rate structure. I was curious how that structure compares to the median usage per single family residence? Because I didn't see that, and so I was just kind of curious where we're falling with that progressive rate structure.
So that's a really good question. So the rate structure, the key thing about when you think about it in a rate structure like this with conjunction to single family is, first of all, where are the blocks? So the first thing is the block 1 is from 0 to 5,000 gallons. So every month you're going to get at least up to 5,000 gallons at block 1 rate, and block 1 is $4.16. So 5,000 gallons is an ample amount of water for a family of 4. An efficient family of 4 can use 3,000 gallons. So that, I mean, that's kind of to give you a rough range. It's 5,000 on the other hand is also, another way to look at it is it also includes a little bit for some outdoor use potentially. And before you get into the higher blocks. Okay, so then you have the next block, which is from 5,000 to 15,000 gallons. So most people were never going to get out of that. I mean, average single family monthly use in Longmont never exceeds 15,000 gallons, I don't think. So to get into block 3 over that, you'd have to be well above, typical use. So I think from this point of like where the block points are, this is a very fine, you could quibble, oh, the block 1 could be lower or whatever, about that, but it's perfectly reasonable. The dollar breakpoints, so you got $4.16, then it goes to $6. That's not a huge jump, but it's better than some. It's still about a 50% increase, and then another 50% above that. Sometimes you see like a steeper change. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure that any of that really makes that much of a difference nowadays. Most customers, they're impacted by the bottom line. There's many other things that are on the water bill besides the water charge itself. So to get too hung up about like the ultra mechanics of the rate structure, I think generally aren't productive from a demand reduction standpoint.
Because that was kind of what I was thinking about. I was looking at those numbers, particularly actually the 1 and 2 slots, is if Longmont could be more aggressive in creating a decentive rate structure for folks using more than that median water usage to really incentivize folks with the large lawns to get the garden box, and because that's, as I look at the structure, it seems very reasonable, and honestly, it feels a little cheap to me, and so I wonder if there's not cheap in analysis, cheap in money.
No, I know.
Yes.
The problem, the difficulty with rate structures is that you're dealing with the public good, and you're generally not allowed to charge more for the water than it costs to produce. And so you already have to make some kind of an argument that it costs you more, for this higher usage, that this is taxing the system, or it costs you more to get that next increment of supply from a marginal cost perspective, So you run into a situation where someone could sue you if they chose to, if you get too far off with that highest tier. But to get to your point, the simplest thing Longmont could do would be just to increase the rate in the tier 3. That single act, just ratcheting that up as much as you feel you're legally justified, would accomplish effectively what you described.
Thank you. And if I could slip in one more question on this page,
Sure.
Is there a reason we can't, shouldn't, wouldn't create progressive rates for the multifamily, small commercial, and irrigation capacities?
No, I mean you could certainly do that. So I'm not a rate. I don't set rates. That's not something I comment on them a lot. But the there are plenty of places where that have inclining block rates. It can be a little bit more challenging, because we know a lot better how much a single family uses indoors. So that block one is much easier to set. But many places have managed to do it. So I'm sure Longmont could.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Ralph, I believe your hand was up as well.
Yes, thank you, Peter, very much for taking the presentation. It's very timely too. I'm on the steering committee of the Front Range Sustainability Council, which is a coordinated group of board members from communities all along the Front Range. And we just had a meeting last week, and in taking a survey of the interests of the communities up and down the Front Range, water was the #1 topic. And so we had a meet and greet, and you may know, I have to look up his name here, Russ Sands, who's the section chief, Colorado Water Conservation Board. Don't know him. He was one of the presenters, but I had two quick questions.
I do know Russ, yes.
Oh, you do. Two quick questions. One is that it's really terrific that there is a reduction in the per capita water usage. But I noticed in looking at the population that in 2023, Longmont grew by 4.3%. And looking through all the years that were in the chart, there was nothing close to that. And I'm wondering, what predictors are you using about population growth, and how does that affect the planning for water usage and water availability?
So that is a great question. One of the things that we were not tasked with is doing a demand forecast for this plan. That actually is part of another planning effort in Longmont. I'm the future population is, I think it is something it used to be what I think 145,000 is my recollection serves. But I don't think that anyone really is thinking about like there's this fixed, future number anymore. Generally people are thinking in terms of planning horizons now. This plan is a 7-year planning horizon. The other utility resources plans have generally much longer planning horizon. Currently, the understanding is that there's enough supply, for what we understand to be that planning horizon.
Thank you. One other quick esoteric question that came up from this meeting last week. Are you familiar with the Eurasian water milfoil, an invasive species of plant that is creating a problem in some of our water supplies on the Front Range? Milfoil is the
Milfoil, yes, I've heard the word. I've heard talk of milfoil. This isn't really, again, my area of water, but yeah, it's ringing a bell.
Yeah, I just wondered if, the idea of things that could just throw a monkey wrench like invasive species into our water supplies and things like that, if that sort of thing is taken into consideration or whether it's a factor. But here's the thing, you probably know, I know nothing about it, and I was just curious if it was on the radar. So it may not be a problem that's reached the level of concern.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of different things, there's invasive mussels, there's this milfoil, there's, whatever toxic mold. When you run a water utility, you deal with whatever is the latest thing that is happening in Colorado. It is a lot of stuff, wildfires. Yes. It's just part of being a manager. I don't think any plan can, every time there's something happens, and you add it to the list of things that you plan for, but there's got to be something new under the sun. I mean, let's be real. The big thing that we need to plan for is increased temperatures, though, and variable precipitation.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you so much.
Ethan?
Thank you, Peter. It's a very interesting report. Have you looked at the possible connection between fluoridation and water efficiency?
No, that's I have not looked at the relationship there at all.
So, for background context, a recent federal court ruling raised concerns about the impact of water fluoridation on children's IQ development. It concluded that the current fluoride IQ in children. This was based on a comprehensive review of scientific studies, including findings from the National Toxicology Program, which identified a significant link between fluoride exposure and decreased IQ scores in children. So the EPA is currently reviewing the court's decision. It not yet announced any changes to its policies regarding water fluoridation, but there could be several potential water efficiency improvements that could be derived from stopping fluoridation. One of those would be scaling and corrosion in water systems, because fluoride compounds may contribute slightly to scaling, which is the buildup of deposits in pipes and equipment. So eliminating fluoride might reduce the contribution scaling in some water systems, potentially lowering maintenance costs and improving the efficiency of water transport in pipes. Another is energy use in water treatment. And fluoride requires energy for sourcing, transportation, and dosing the chemical into the water supply. This contributes slightly to the overall energy footprint of water treatment. So seasonal fluoridation could reduce this energy consumption. That might translate into efficiency gains. There might be environmental considerations. The excess fluoride from treated water can accumulate in the environment, potentially affecting ecosystems, and also public perception and behavioral impact. In some communities, concerns about fluoride may lead to reduced trust in municipal water, prompting people to turn to bottled water or other sources. This can indirectly reduce the perceived efficiency of the public water system. Removing fluoride might enhance public trust in municipal water supplies, potentially increasing the use and reducing reliance on less sustainable alternatives like bottled water. And perhaps the greatest benefit could come from the actual increase in IQ levels, combined with public education about water efficiency. Then people can make smart decisions about how to be more water efficient in their own lives. And there could be even a direct relationship between saving the money on fluoridation and putting that money back into water efficiency education programs. What do you think about all that?
Well, I think that's very interesting. I think you could probably say the same thing about removing chlorine from water. It's just not something I've ever looked at as changing the chemical components of the water. That's not my world of water is about how to reduce flush volumes and showering and irrigation. So that's just
Do
a
you have
different
technical ability?
perspective that hasn't made it yet into the world that I work in yet.
Do you have the technical ability to look at that?
No,
Analyze
I
the
don't. I
economic
don't deal
benefit?
with water quality.
Is there anyone in the city who could look at that?
Not that I know of.
We do have water quality folks. If that's a topic in January, we'll be talking about priorities for this group for 2025. I think water quality typically falls outside of our purview somewhat, but we can talk about that more in January.
Great, yeah, I think we should. Especially because it's probably going to be an issue that comes up in the next federal administration.
Thanks, Ethan. Peter, I had a question. You mentioned that we would at least be rated silver or maybe even a low end on the gold range. What are the handful of things that would take us to the tippy top? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I mean, you have to look at like the programs, the places that have like truly, platinum level water efficiency are they're spending so much more money. They are in very different water supply situation than Longmont. I'm talking about places like Las Vegas, which I would rate as one of the most aggressive water conservation communities. When it comes to outdoor use, they don't give a crap about indoor use because it all is recycled back to just one giant recycling system with Lake Mead there. But they are really serious about outdoor water use, including banning evaporative cooling in new buildings. So that's a huge, huge use of water. And it's basically basically making a decision that you can produce energy, presumably solar energy, cheaper, or you can do that, but you cannot produce more water. So, you're when you have to rate Longmont, you're up against places like that. Places, in California, Marin, California, where I think their per capita use might be down. Their indoor use is below 35. It's, it's just different circumstances and situations. So maybe I know too much about the way the different utilities are. Within Colorado, though, we did some comparison. By some comparisons, Longmont could actually put more money into water conservation. It really, depends which perspective you look at. But I think that's something that actually our analysis they're looking at, and I expect there could be a budget increase coming.
Okay. Daniel?
Sorry, one last one. And I'm not 100% sure on terms here, so bear with me.
Sure, no worries.
But so I was looking at the profile of where our water comes from, and I was curious, is Longmont relying on any non-renewable water sources right now?
No,
That's what,
no.
okay.
100% renewable.
Yeah,
Renewable water, right? The one, the thing that I was a little surprised about was the percent of CBT, of Colorado Big Thompson water, that Longmont has been using. But that actually is slated to change over time. I think you have a goal of getting it to at 30%, which I think is probably more of where you would like to be.
Yeah, I think generally reducing the growing competition for shared water in all the northern Colorado communities is, I think, an important concern for the next 10 to 100 years.
Yeah, well, but there are also our new water supplies coming online. We've got NISP, and there are some other things that are gonna, be available for other communities. I think it's so. I'm hoping that will keep drive down the price of the CBT. Because currently, if it keeps going up like this, it just becomes, it's so lucrative for farmers to sell it. And I really believe that trying to preserve ag is about keeping the water on, without the water, you can't grow anything around here.
Are there any other questions or comments on this topic?
Robert,
Please submit any comments or ideas on the survey too. That's another way, if you have any other additional thoughts on the plan.
Yeah, that was kind of my question, is like, as far as like practically, if we have recommendations, thoughts, changes, what's our process for making those recommendations?
That's the process.
Survey?
Use
Okay.
that. I think you can make whatever comments you want. And you can tell if you want to say who it is that's making this fine. I didn't create it, but I think it's possible to do that.
We'll make sure to get you all the link to that survey.
Thanks.
That link was
Well, thank you.
included in the agenda packet for anyone who's interested.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. And thank you, Peter. That's really good information, and I appreciate the presentation.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It's really it's an honor to work for the city.
Thank you.
Take care.
Next up on our agenda is the Transportation Mobility Plan update that Cami Edson's going to take us through.
Yeah, hi, thank you all. Cami Edson here. Thank you, board members and staff, for having me come today. Let me share my screen real quick. It looks like, not sure if I'm sharing the right one yet. Just a second. Do you see the presentation or not quite yet? Or do you just see
I
by
can.
me? Yep, okay. Good, good, good. I know we're might be a little bit limited on time because I know you have some board plans to also get through. So I'm going to give you a pretty high level review, and maybe as you're listening as a favor, at the end, you can give me some feedback about what you would like more details on when we come back in the future, because I know that is part of our plans. So two things, I'm going to talk about the transportation mobility plan tonight. Not going to go into great detail because in January, we're going to come back and give you more of a full review and you'll have a chance to provide comments on that. But I wanted to at least give a snapshot in case people weren't familiar with the transportation mobility plan at this point. But as a project, it's really meant to guide the future of walking, rolling, transit, and transportation safety in the city of Longmont. So it's got a 2050 sort of view lens to it. And it's really focusing on coming up with recommendations for the city around bicycling, pedestrian ways, where we're doing transit, where it's needed, where there's issues about the roadways design and programs. And just the picture off to the left here is just a snapshot of some of the programs that are going to be have some greater detail on, and you'll see more details on and recommendations in January. But I wasn't sure if you all had any introduction to the TMP at this point, or is this sort of the first introduction?
Yeah, I mean, we had Phil come a couple of months ago.
Okay, so you've got this part already. Okay. So unfortunately he got double booked tonight. He was going to be here, but we're sort of splitting presentations. So just so you know, he is planning to come back in January 2025, like I mentioned, to give you greater detail on all of it. So I'm going to spend the rest of my update focusing on Vision Zero, if that works for you all. And I am the Vision Zero coordinator for the city of Longmont, a member of the transportation planning team, so transportation planner, and I have a public health background. So Vision Zero is really about reducing the number of fatalities and serious injury crashes that are happening in Longmont. So the city adopted a goal last year in 2023 to eliminate all fatal and serious injury crashes on the roadways by 2040, so 15 years from now. And so Vision Zero, it's one of those terms and that is hard to understand. A lot of people see the name and they think, oh, we have site issues, or we have lots of sorts of different things. So I wanted to somewhat explain at a high level, it isn't a program, it isn't a project, it's really a set of strategies. There's a number of different ways, and I'll introduce you to those strategies in the next slide, that really helps you reach the goal of eliminating your fatal and serious injury crashes. And a lot of people say that's an unrealistic goal. And even if it is unrealistic, we sort of take the stance of would there be any other acceptable goal other than zero to work towards? And so it really applies a public health lens to how we manage our transportation system. And I think tonight we'll talk about really how the intersection with transportation planning and safety can co-align a lot with sustainability goals, especially around BMT reduction, air quality pieces, some of those elements you probably all are very familiar with. And so the approach is cities have been designing roadways for years and years and years and years and managing the roadway systems with the intention of moving as many vehicles as possible. So it's been about traffic mitigation and traffic volume. Vision Zero is sort of flipping that script and saying we are wanting to put, now that we have a robust vehicle network, we need to now stop focusing on moving traffic vehicles as our priority. That still matters. But as a priority, we now want to put bicyclists and pedestrians and those using mobility devices, sort of the most vulnerable road users, kind of at the top of the pyramid. So we're going to start managing our transportation system with those vulnerable road users in mind, while we still care about moving traffic volume, though traffic volume will not be our decision-making point anymore about what happens on the roads. So just to give you a quick kind of snapshot of what's going on in Longmont, this year alone, we've actually had 5 fatal fatalities. The 5th police report has not been published, so that's why I have 4 here. But just to give you a little perspective, in 2023, we've had a total of 8. And then in 2022, we had a total of, 2021, a total of 9. And then pre-pandemic, we were up in the double digits, like 12s to 11. So our numbers are going down in Longmont, thankfully. We are bucking the national trend that most places are seeing their fatal and serious injury rates go up after COVID. And so far, we have not seen that happen, even though we don't have many post-COVID years, behind us yet. But I think the work and the fact that our engineering staff and roadway staff and planning staff have cared about safety for many, many years, even before Vision Zero was adopted by City Council, is proving out to be a good thing. We are focusing a lot on speed in 2025. So I wanted to point out that last night, there was an ordinance passed by City Council for us to update our local policies to allow for automated detection cameras. And that could look like red light running cameras and speed cameras, because our traffic enforcement team is just not big enough to cover all the roads and be everywhere at once while they're dealing with all the other police related issues. So these are proven to be pretty effective in helping us reduce our fatal and serious injury rates. So we're going to be looking into some of that advanced technology for Longmont. And just over here on the right are just some of the events that we've been doing around Vision Zero. We launched a task force in October. Anyone is more than welcome to be a part of that task force. It's open to the public. We also hosted our first World Day of Remembrance, which will be an annual event. And that is really to honor those folks that we've lost or who have been seriously injured on our local roadways. It's an international event, and it's been happening in communities across the US. So we're not excited that we have to have one of these days, but we're happy that we're participating in this for our local community to have a space to come and honor those that we've lost or have been injured. We have one more task force in December. It will be December 16th on Monday in City Council chambers if any of you are interested, and I can make sure Lisa or Francie gets the information to pass on to you all in case you're interested. But really what we've been focusing on in 2024, I was hired at the beginning of the year, is we've been really looking at what source of funding do we need to make Vision Zero strategies come to life. We've been really looking at what are our community engagement strategies going to look like, and how do we really get those who represent those vulnerable road user groups involved. So young people, older adults, those experiencing disabilities, those who might have language barriers, those who live in our maybe under-resourced communities, a lot of the same equitable issues that I'm sure you as a board and you as staff are paying attention to, we also are. And so we're looking at some of these engagement layers that we have data on, and overlaying some of our crash data with it. And then we're really trying to pull together a communications plan so we can get the word out more effectively and more efficiently about what Vision Zero is and what it isn't, since we know just by title, it is a confusing term. So under data management, kind of the basic starting point is crash reports. Those are filled out by either State Patrol or the police. I have an image of the latest crash report that just was completed literally in a matter of a week or two ago. And we'll be getting that up on our Vision Zero website soon. So if any of you are interested in that, we're happy to share that with you. And that really has been an annual publication that just talks about total number of crashes, what types of crashes, where crashes are occurring. Very helpful baseline data for Vision Zero. But as I mentioned, we are most interested in paying attention to how many people are being killed and how many people are being seriously injured, which goes beyond just the crash count. And so how we are going to do Vision Zero, like I said, it's a set of strategies. I wanted to bring to your attention the safe system elements, what you see in the blue box. These 5 buckets, as you see, safe road users or safe people on roads, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads and post-crash care is really kind of be the organizational framework for Vision Zero. Everything we do moving forward and any future updates, and when we talk about projects in the future or funding in the future, we will be attaching it to one or multiple of these 5 buckets as a way to organize Vision Zero work. We have a number of planning projects already happening. We're working on an equitable engagement plan. We will be launching a Vision Zero action plan and developing that in 2025. We'll be looking for steering committee members. Just like the transportation mobility plan currently has a steering committee while it's under development, we're going to pick up basically where the TMP has left off and add greater detail from the safety perspective into the Vision Zero plan. Out of the task force, we have a number of subcommittees that are coming on board. I saw Council Member Martin here. We're talking about having a safer detour subcommittee. We're talking about having a data subcommittee. We're talking about maybe kind of a quick wins program subcommittee. A number of different subcommittees are coming out of the task force of interest of what people want to focus on. We have a number of demonstration projects already in the works where we are going to be kind of trying new approaches on the roadway that might not be approved or not necessarily common in Longmont yet, or might not have necessarily the policies behind them. We need to do some policy work updates to make it easier to see more of these things implemented on the road, some of these safe strategies implemented on our roadways. So we're going to do some demonstration projects around town. And then we have a number of collaborative projects with other communities. And I know one of the projects that I heard you all were interested in and I wanted to bring forward was the 287 Vision Zero Safety Mobility Study, which is a partnership with all of the communities just north of Longmont up into Weld County, all the way down to Broomfield. So Longmont, Erie, Lafayette along the way, where we're looking at this high crash corridor where unfortunately we see a lot of fatal accidents going on. And so there's a lot of discussion about implementing possibly median barriers of some type out there. And then Boulder County, CDOT, Dr. Cog, some of the transportation agencies across the state will work with each of us as local municipal partners to really identify what are those safety improvement strategies that we want to implement on our roads. And you can see up around Longmont, there's a lot of clusters of potential themes that are coming out of what we might need to make it safer. On the state highways is where we're going to see most of the fatalities and serious injuries because the speeds are higher, right? We have the most kinetic energy happening in crashes. And so that's one of the approaches is to think through how can we reduce the kinetic energy when crashes do occur. We know eliminating crashes as a whole is not probably possible. There will probably always be crashes. But if we can reduce that kinetic energy within crashes, we should see our fatality and serious injury rates go down. So this is just one of those great collaborative demonstration projects demonstrating collaboration across, a lot of community partners. And I want to wrap up to give you time. So just to kind of get to the end here, are there any specific content areas that you would like Phil or I to come back and focus on either in January around the TMP, getting more into the sustainability topics of interest to you, or more into the Vision Zero topics that are of interest to you?
Corkit, why don't you start us off?
I'm sorry, I just talked real fast at you all.
That's okay.
So thank you for that.
Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Cami. That was a really good introduction. I mean, you asked what areas we would like to have more information. I mean, I'm more interested in how do you make the roads more safer.
Okay. Like the strategies that we might use? Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
I mean, I personally don't really believe the enforcement would make a lot of change. If there's a road designed for 55 miles an hour and the speed limit is 35 miles an hour, somebody's going to speed there. So
right.
It's the design of the road is very crucial. And, fixing the design is the narrowing and doing certain things. So I personally more interested in what those are in your list.
Great. And I think through
Those
the
are the
action
kind of
plan
things we can
process in
do.
2020, oh, I'm sorry.
Those are the kind of things I believe this board can be helpful.
Great. And I think we can definitely get more, when we have more time, we can get more into what are, one, generally proven effective strategies, and then two, through our action plan process that's going to unfold next year, community members as well as advisory boards are going to have a chance to weigh in on which priorities are of preference to you all, either by neighborhoods or just for the city of Longmont as a whole. We really want to look at where can we apply system-wide approaches that apply anywhere where the conditions are similar, instead of kind of one-offing safety treatment processes, you know, every time one is identified, because then we've created a network of inconsistent applications to try to improve it versus really looking at those system-wide applications.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to emphasize is that I understand that you're really focusing on the reducing the fatalities. I mean, reducing the speeds and making more walkable is actually quality of life as well. And that has a lot of implications in the way we're organized of land use, which has implications on resilience. What I was going to suggest or emphasize is to really emphasize that part of it, is that what else beyond the fatalities these designs are going to improve in our lifestyles.
Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it. When it comes to our communications plan, one of the things we know is if we only talk about the hard stuff like the fatalities and the serious injuries, people are going to zone out anyway, versus bringing forward messages around Vision Zero that are also about that quality of life and positivity and multimodal, and sort of, you know, what does it mean if we have 0 injuries and deaths, right? How many, you know, we have more of our loved ones around, right? So really having the balance between the reality-based messages, or maybe some that might come across as more negative or hard, that people will tone out, with those pro-social behaviors that continue to wear your seatbelts. Most of you are, right? You're worth it. We're all worth it. Those kinds of things. But that's part of our communications plan too, is how do we get that, those quality of life messages to be a part of the Vision Zero story that people hear across Longmont. So thank you for bringing that up.
Daniel?
Thanks. Yeah, I think one thing I'm keeping in mind, especially with this board, is one, you know, as far as details I'd like to see is regularly seeing tracking on the number of regular cyclists and pedestrians there are in this community. And I think it's critical for Vision Zero to be working hand in hand with the efforts to increase the number of cyclists and pedestrians, because, you know, that's our sustainability goals, right? Is reducing our community's reliance on cars and increasing their reliance on their bikes, their feet, in particular, because it's, you know, one of those things where, you know, accidentally, if we're not careful, Vision Zero can work against our net zero goals. And speaking anecdotally, is like I really value the Vision Zero efforts as a cyclist and someone from a family of cyclists and runners, but also what we hear a ton of now in that community is that cyclists are changing their behavior in a negative way to avoid our roads since COVID, because they're so dangerous. And so we're seeing a decline in cycling. And I want to make sure when we're celebrating, you know, our decline in Vision Zero, that's not because we're reducing pedestrian and cyclists on our roadways. You know, I think we want to see both directions, is more of our communities on the road, but they're safer at the same time. So that's just kind of, yeah, I want to see that detail of we're pushing the number of cyclists in our community while also keeping them safe. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And I think part of getting that data, like Francie's such a great model or you all sustainability staff for how to get our data out. We're working on catching up. So we have a dashboard so we can start sharing all of the data we do have and be more transparent about it as well. Because yeah, we don't want to hold the information back from anybody. We're just building the systems right now so we can get them shared as quickly as possible. But thank you for that.
Ralph? Oh, you're on mute, Ralph.
Thank you, Cami, for this presentation. Very quick question. Does the Vision Zero initiative address the issue of, for instance, road and intersection design versus individual behavior? Now, I'm specifically talking about drinking and drugs. As I looked at the police reports, in the newspaper, it seems that that's often involved. It may be outside the scope of what you're looking at, but no matter how much you fix it, if this is a major factor, I just wondered whether this comes into play in your discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. And so right now what we're doing is taking all the fatal and serious injury crash reports that we do have and doing a deeper dive analysis. We actually have some consultant support to get it done quicker than what staff would be able to do internally. It's to really look at what are those contributing factors behind our fatal and serious crashes from either an individual behavior point or from a road design point. So we're looking at both, and hopefully we will have some story maps that will have kind of those crash profiles and those behavioral profiles available, you know, also very early in 2025. So we can also say, we need to know that information to start prioritizing what do we need to focus on, because without those answers of what you just brought up, we might not necessarily be addressing what the need is. So we need to do this additional level of analysis to really know what to hone in on.
Any other comments or suggestions, questions? Well, Cami, thank you. This is I'm looking forward to a deeper dive here in a couple months.
There we go.
Good stuff.
Yes, that'll be great. So thank you all for giving a little time tonight. Lisa, it's all you or wherever it goes next. Yes.
And Heather, we did not have anyone for the public invited to be heard, correct? I'm sorry.
We don't have any, you're right.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, then the next item up is our sustainability matching grant letter support.
Great. Yeah, thanks everyone. I apologize for not getting information to you sooner. I was hoping the county had historically released this application in September and then October, and this year I got it last Friday. Oh, bye Marcia, thanks. So I apologize for not being able to get information into your packet, but I do have a short presentation for you all, just to get you all up to speed, since we have a handful of new members that may or may not be familiar with what shorthand we call the sustainability tax. So if you hear me use that, it's just what we use shorthand for, the sustainability matching, environmental sustainability matching grant, which is what the county calls it. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Heather. So the county actually had this grant program in place prior to when the sustainability tax itself was passed. It was capped at $15,000 per municipality, and it was intended to help local municipalities across the county do local sustainability and climate action work. In 2016, Boulder County voters approved a county-wide sustainability tax to fund sustainability infrastructure and programs. It was not a new tax. It was actually just a split of the existing open space tax, which was 5%. And so this essentially took half of that and devoted it to sustainability work. It kicked into effect in 2020, and it expires in 2035 unless it's continued by the voters at that time. As it stands currently, this can go up to 10%, but 6% of the tax revenue is allocated to the municipalities based on population. So the bigger municipalities get a larger slice of that 6%. And then it's also, there's a required 25% cash match. Again, it's through the Environmental Sustainability Matching Grant Program. And again, the allocations are determined by population. So if you want to go to the next slide, Heather. These are the general funding categories that the funds can be used for. So climate, which covers a lot of things, ecosystem, health and services, energy and buildings, local food and agriculture, transportation, policy that relates to sustainability and climate, water quality and conservation, zero waste sustainability planning, and commercial sector sustainability, and finding linkages between affordability and sustainability. Next slide, please. So as we started prioritizing projects for this funding, so of course we always have our direction from City Council and their policy priorities. Those change with the council, the makeup of the council, but this is the current council's list of priorities. So they have kind of that, this graphic is a really nice representation where They have, but the foundation being our core services, and those are the services that the city provides to the community, that kind of basic utility, basic functions. We have also a foundation of equity, safety, and sustainability. And then their core priorities within this kind of places and amenities overarching area is housing, early childhood, and transportation, and then tying climate action through all of that. And so I flagged the council priorities that the work that we have done really ties to. So climate action and their top priorities in that area are our transition to 100% renewable energy, electrification, and zero waste, a big focus on transportation, and then that housing and obviously equity and sustainability piece. So when I talk to you about the priorities that are coming up for this year, they tie back to those council priorities. Sorry, Heather, go ahead. Go to the next slide. And so in 2024, so for this year, we had about $200,000, and then again, that 25% cash match. We met with, when we first started this, we did a lot of stakeholder engagement with this board and the Sustainability Coalition and a bunch of folks within staff to understand the different priorities, where there were gaps in funding. Over the last couple of years that we've been doing this grant, we've kind of honed that process over time, and we've learned some lessons, and we've also had a couple of projects that we have been building on, and you'll see one of those in the projects for 2025. And so this isn't just us sort of picking things out of a hat. It has a long history and background that we have been building on using this funding for. In 2024, that was focusing on extreme heat resilience, which we've talked to you all a lot about through the Whole Home Health program, bringing together health, safety, and comfort measures for low-income households or income-qualified households, and then the implementation of community-driven cooling solutions. And so we had funding this year to do community. Last year, we used funding for the community engagement portion of understanding how do people experience heat in their neighborhoods, and what are the solutions that they want to see to help mitigate that experience of heat. And then we had identified funding this year for implementation of some of those solutions. We are still doing that, but the implementation got bumped to 2025 just because of timing. We're also combining that with ARPA funds, and that process for getting that contracting, we kind of missed the construction window. And so that is happening. It just got bumped to 2025. And then we also had funding for continuation of expanding the Big Belly recycling bins at key parks locations. And next slide. So what we're looking at for 2025 is a little bit less, but not that much, similar around that $200,000 mark. This is an estimation for now because they don't know exactly what the 2025 revenue will be. And then that 25% cash match of about $50,000. One of the lessons we learned is to simplify what we're going after. And so you'll see we used to have, 4 or 5 projects that we would use this funding. We definitely found that it's easier from a management and reporting standpoint to hone that in. And also we've honed some of these programs over time as well. So the continuation of the Whole Home Health program, in part, we used funding both last year and this year. We were able to hire somebody this year in a 2-year fixed term position whose position goes through the end of next year. And we really want to use this funding to have that second year of data so that that person can do a lot of the data analysis to really understand what's the impact of this program, what's the scalability of this program, how does it tie to other regional efforts, how do we braid all of the current funding sources, all of those sorts of things. So this will help kind of round out that 2 years of demonstration of that project that then will give us a lot of that information on how we want to move forward. And then some smaller focus on alternative transportation accessibility. And so this ties both to our goals with regards to greenhouse gas emissions reductions and getting people out of single occupancy vehicles through bus stop improvements. So we have a lot of bus stops. Phil Greenwald talked about this when he did and talk about the transportation mobility plan a few months ago. I'm sure he'll mention this again when he comes in January. There's a lot of bus stops that all they have is a sign. So you'll see people sitting on the curb or sitting on the grass, or just having difficulty knowing that even just to be able to have a place to sit while you wait for the bus is not available at a lot of our bus stops. And that's one, that's not a very dignified way for people to access transit. And also it makes it difficult for a lot of folks, particularly with mobility challenges, to safely access transit. And so providing some funding for some of those bus stop improvements. And then also launching a car share program that our transportation planners have some funding for, but have a bit of a gap there. And so we have an opportunity to use this funding to just fill that gap, which is pretty good quick win for us on that front. So that's what we're looking at for 2025. If you want to go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, they just released the application. I'll be working on getting that finalized in the next couple of weeks. We are required to have a letter of support from this board and a letter of support also from the city to submit with our application, which will go in mid-December. And then the commissioners, the grant coordinator for the county will review everything and then take those recommendations to the commissioners later on. And then the award will be announced in Q1 of 2025. So with that, I did draft a letter of support. It's pretty basic, but I want to just pause first before I review that and see if there's any questions. Nope. Okay, great. Heather, will you pull up that draft letter? Or I can do it as well if need be. Thanks. So again, I apologize for putting words in your mouth, but the timing with the releasing the grant this year, just kind of had to roll with it. So I can definitely make real-time edits if you all have any, and otherwise I'll ask you all to make a motion on supporting the letter of support. And then Robert, as vice chair, it would be you that we would follow up with for a signature since Michelle is out today. So I will give you all a couple minutes to read that, and it kind of summarizes what we just talked about.
Lisa, quick question.
Sure.
Down about 2/3 of the way down, there's a sentence in the paragraph that starts this proposal that says the proposal support city council goals. So I guess that's right. I thought it would be this proposal supports, but I think that's fine. Never mind.
I think you're right. Yeah, please feel free to copy edit me if need be. Thank you. All right. Did everyone have a chance to read through the whole thing?
I did. I don't have any recommended alterations. I like it as it is.
I think it's great.
All right. All right. Any other comments, questions, edits?
There's it's the tiniest of things.
Please do go for it.
Working communications. Maybe replace the italics with bold, because italics is challenging for folks with dyslexia. But that's just,
Oh,
yeah.
I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know that. I will do that now. All right, great. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the letter.
And I will second.
And all those in favor of approving the letter? No. And all those opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Great, thanks so much. Robert, we'll follow up with you to get that signature. Thanks all.
Okay.
And Lisa,
Sounds good.
thank you very much for drafting this and for the presentation.
And if there's an
Up next,
opportunity for us to expand that grant timeline for you. If we can be advocates for that, let us know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So true. Up next on the agenda is items from the board. We do have the Front Range Sustainability Council update that Ralph is going to do. And after that, anybody else, if you have any items you want to bring to the table, that's time to do so. So Ralph, why don't you get us going?
I'll just be very brief because of the hour. The Front Range Sustainability Council is a sort of a coordinated effort. It's a collaboration initiative along the Front Range of board members on sustainability, environmental committees in the various communities along the Front Range. There was a regional networking meeting in Boulder last week. It happened to be after a poll, as I mentioned earlier, that one of the major issues was water. And so there were two presentations. One was from Russ Sands, who is the section chief for Colorado Water Conservation Board. It's very interesting, talking basically about ongoing water conservation efforts in the region and about water forecasting. And then Kim Hutton, who is the water resources manager for the city of Boulder. And she talked about climate modeling and what water sustainability initiatives were taking place there. There is a steering committee. I am on the steering committee for this group. There's a steering committee meeting on Friday, and I'll update everybody when we meet again in January. Happy to answer any questions if there are any, but that's what's going on. Oh, one thing I would like to say is that this is sort of going on in the background, and I've been participating in it. But if there's anything, just for everyone to be thinking about, if there's any issues that come to mind for you that you think on a regional basis you'd like to have put before this group. This is a group that's pretty motivated. They're already serving on their board, and then they're putting in the additional time to be part of this group. So just be thinking if there's something that you think is an important issue that extends beyond just our own community, then I'll be very happy to take that to this group for a wider collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. I really appreciate your involvement there in representing us. I know it's not a small investment.
I do want to jump in really quickly to let you know I also am in conversations with our legal folks, because I think as that group evolves, just wanting to make sure that we have the right direction based on their different events and things like that around the open meetings laws. And so they've been pretty swamped, and I haven't heard back from them on them yet from that recent meeting. But just so you all know, I am tracking that with legal just to make sure that we are following all the protocols appropriately for participation in that group.
Perfect. Daniel.
Yeah, Ralph, I was curious, is the board engaged, the regional board engaged with the topic of regional transportation and advocacy in that space?
Well, there was I think I mentioned in one of our meetings, there was a survey that was done, and that was not in the major priorities that came up. That doesn't mean that we can't, from our side, present that, but so far, no, there has not been much interest in that. So would be happy, Daniel, if you have any additional things that you like. I think that this would be something to put in front of them that might increase their awareness about some of the very important issues regarding that.
Yeah, that was because after the survey, I was actually kind of surprised that transportation wasn't a higher priority, just because it seems like there's a pretty big opportunity now with RTD's focus on regional transportation and the north, the rail lines. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to be particularly effective as a regional sustainability board to be getting involved and advocating for what RTD is trying to accomplish in the area of sustainable transportation.
I think it's a great idea. Thanks so much for bringing that up. And if you want to, move that forward more, again, right now the board, the steering committee is sort of focusing on the issues that have come up. So this may need to be something not necessarily to the steering committee, but maybe to the group as a whole to see whether or not this is something they would like to collaborate on. But I will make it a point to mention that this came up because I'll be reporting to them that I did, give a report today to our board, and I'll mention that, so maybe somebody on the steering committee might jump on that.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
anything I can do to help or support that too, not just throwing out ideas and hoping others will pick them up, happy to jump in where I can too.
One thing, Daniel, that would be very helpful if you could forward to Heather just a sentence or two of your thoughts, anything that you want, and I will read it at the steering committee meeting on Friday if you get a chance to do that.
Perfect, on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ralph or any other items from the board that anyone wants to bring up? Go ahead, Ethan.
So this is not for Ralph, but another item. So last week, President-elect Trump nominated a new energy secretary named Chris Wright, who has a connection to Colorado company, I believe based out of Denver. And about 2 weeks ago, he gave a talk at the Denver Business Roundtable. And if there's no objection, I'd like to share a few minutes from that, just to begin to get to know who Chris Wright is, because there's been some discussion about him in the media, and I don't think it's all been entirely accurate where he's coming from.
Is
So
that video stuff that you want to share, or just your own reading a document?
it is a video, if that's okay.
Okay, and we're not able to do that.
Why is that?
You can just give a review or summation or whatever of the video, but we can't have you share the video.
Okay, 1 second. So he publishes an annual report called the Bettering Human Lives Report. He acknowledges that climate change is real. That's been a point of misinformation because the media is saying that he's a climate change denier. He does acknowledge that climate change is real, but he calls it merely a challenge and far from the world's greatest threat to human life. He says this is a real background phenomenon, but it's just wildly misrepresented for political and media and all sorts of other reasons, and that gets in the way of things. He calls net zero emissions pledges a cost that come with cleaner energy sources. He calls for a sensible approach, but believes Colorado's strictest in the nation rules on oil and gas are off the rails. He what else is there? He downplays the importance of renewable energy sources, but is bullish on nuclear, saying it should go from 4% of energy production to 10%. A small modular nuclear reactor company, and he's trying to relocate them to Colorado, or bring some of their business to Colorado. He says that oil and gas critics are, quote, nuts, and that there's no dirty energy, there's no clean energy, there's no good stuff, there's no bad stuff. Everything has trade-offs. Yeah, I think people should just listen to him in his own words. You can find his talk at the Denver Business Roundtable on YouTube, and also you can look up his Bettering Human Lives report. And I think it could be relevant. The change in the administration could be quite relevant to the future energy portfolio of our region, of Power Authority, for the election to finalize their integrated resource plan, because some of the changes that are happening now could seriously impact the future possibilities in terms of federal energy policy.
Well, thank you, Ethan. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions or any other topics they want to bring to the table? Okay. Well, that is the end of the items on our agenda. A reminder, the packet has some information to go take a moment to read. Another reminder, we are not meeting in December. We're taking the month off. We will be connecting again in January on the 15th in person. That's all we got. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that a second, Daniel?
Sorry,
You're
that was
muted,
me.
sorry.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, I think that motion carries unanimously. So thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a lovely rest of the day and rest of the year.
Good job, Robert. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you in January. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Happy holidays.